Welcome to Understanding Today. I'm your host, Kareem Irfan. Join me as we engage today's thought leaders and inspiring influencers in socio-economic, high-tech, business management, strategic planning, and leadership issues of current relevance. Understanding Today is broadcast on Muslim Network TV to the US, Canada, and Mexico, live streamed on social media and YouTube. You can also watch us on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, and soon on Apple TV. My dear friends, today we are going to be talking about principled and values-driven leadership in crisis times and shifting globalization trends. My guest is Mr. Farooq Katwari, the chairman, president, and CEO of Ethan Allen Interiors. Speaking as a business strategist and experience as a CEO, I can tell you Mr. Katwari is admirable based on his singular business achievements. The transformation of Ethan Allen into a leading manufacturer and retailer of home furnishings in the US, taking charge as CEO in 1985, then taking the company public in 1993, and growing it consistently with a long-term viewpoint into an iconic US furniture manufacturer known around the world. What I am particularly struck by are his inspiring nonprofit achievements in the areas of human rights, refugee resettlement, and peace building. As chairman of the Refugees International Group, chair of the Kashmir Study Group, member, Council on Foreign Relations, trustee of the World Conference of Religions of Peace and of the Freedom House, director of the Institute for Study of Diplomacy at Georgetown University, on the advisory board for study of diplomacy, on the advisory board of the Mahatma Gandhi Center for Global Nonviolence, and co-chair of the Muslim Jewish American Council of USA. His recognitions are numerous, but let me outline the outstanding American by Choice Award by the US government, the Global Citizenship Award by Tufts University, the Eleanor Roosevelt Valkill Medal, the International Freedom Award, and the ADL's Humanitarian Award. His has indeed been a trailblazing journey from the valleys of Kashmir across legendary cities in India and Pakistan to the immigrant-friendly United States of America. His autobiography has been recently published, aptly named Trailblazer. We will discuss his business and his personal life principles and details about the book too. For now, please welcome Mr. Farooq Katwari, Chairman, President, and CEO, Ethan Allen Interiors. Welcome, Mr. Katwari.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum to you and to all the viewers.
Wonderful. We have so much to talk about, Mr. Katwari, and leading into this, we have tackled together some interesting technical glitches as we manage this virtual meeting. So let's jump right into some areas of your business leadership expertise. In the 80s and the 90s, you reinvented Ethan Allen out of a dated business model. In the post-2008-2009 Great Recession time period, you brought stability and growth by cost-cutting, efficiencies of manufacturing, retailing, and operations. And just over the past year, under the COVID-19 downturn, you have made decisive actions on furloughing a chunk of the workforce, shutting a few hundred design centers, and then focusing on personalized services with emphasis on high quality, fine design, all leveraged with speed, convenience, and high technology while you manage the global supply chain challenges. So amazingly, your June 2020 orders at Ethan Allen were greater than June 2019 with less than 50% of the workforce. Amazing job. How did you do it, Mr. CEO? What was the role of leadership characteristics that you have lived by in your life in all of this? I turn the floor to you.
Well, I really did not do this. It is our talented people who did it. So my job was to help create a team of people who will be able to make these major improvements and changes, not only in this crisis, but in many that we've gone through. You mentioned, for instance, the fact that I had the great opportunity of becoming president at a fairly young age of an iconic American brand. This Ethan Allen was started by two Jewish entrepreneurs in 1932, both affected by the Holocaust. And when they met me, they had this young person who was at that time just finished the university at New York University, being a part-time entrepreneur selling Kashmiri arts and crafts. And I got involved and convinced them that they should be my customer. And a few years later, they wanted me to join the company. Only 3 years later, I convinced them to have a joint venture, which they did. And a few years later, they asked me to join the company, which I did. And later on, I became president and chief executive officer. Now, what I'm getting at is this. It took them courage to take somebody like me, a person named Farouk, coming from a faraway place like Kashmir, at a time when there were not that many people from that part of the region in important responsibilities in the United States. So they had the courage. Then my job was to take this great business, and it was a great enterprise. They had 30 manufacturing operations. They had from New England, Maine, Vermont, to Oklahoma, and to California, to take this to the next level. And what I realized was that at that time, it was not just Ethan Allen. The way was that basically it was written, businesses were run from top down. I said, no, I want to encourage people at all levels. So I established, which is in the book, 10 leadership principles right at that time. And one of the most important one of that is that the job of a leader is to help their people become better. That's the most important one. In fact, the genesis of that is information, ideas from many, many places, even from our history in the Muslim world, that helped me create those 10 leadership principles. And all those factors have led us to develop a team of about 5,000 team members that take tremendous pride. In fact, I will show you, in fact, just as you mentioned, I just received a photo from, this is our operations in Mexico, where we went in, and it says Captain Farouk from Team Silao. The reason I'm saying this is that you have to create teams. You have to help people become better. When you do that, that helps us in the fact that, I've had the opportunity of transforming this enterprise, taking it private in a leveraged buyout with 90% debt, then take it public again. It would not have been possible without creating a team. And now that goes a little bit, perhaps I'll stop here near you. You may have more questions, but it goes even beyond my upbringing in Kashmir, where I spent time in sports.
I'll get to that, Mr. Katwari. In fact, I do want to spend a fair amount of time on the leadership characteristics that you have espoused in the book and that you've exemplified in your life. But one quick area of business strategy. At Ethan Allen, you effectively tackled what you have emphasized were the 21st century challenges of globalization, commoditization, and technology. And you address the pressures from the big box stores, which were providing low price, interchangeable products, the pressure from e-commerce and online sales, from manufacturing outsourcing, and making the right balance between local versus international supply dependency. So I don't mean to lay on the corporate speak here for our listeners, but it is important to appreciate that you did all of that. I am curious at this moment in time, what is your strategic plan, to the extent you can share it, under current trends of globalization, which has been impacted by the constraints of nationalism. So, what is your CEO's post COVID reality that you are planning for?
No, I mean, this is a good question. It's good because the fact is very relevant. Now, many years back, I would say close to 20 years back, our industry, like others, were being impacted by these factors of globalization, commoditization, technology. Globalization had a great impact of taking most of the manufacturing out of the United States. It had an impact of bringing in lots of products, and I mean, even decent products at very lower prices. So the first decision we had to make was, should we maintain manufacturing in the United States? Now, we're a public company, and public company, most companies said, no, we're going to just go because first, the tenure of the CEOs is limited. They've got 3 to 5 years as an average association. And here I said, no, we will maintain our manufacturing and operations in the United States, but we will expand it to North America so that we are able to be able to compete. We have to compete. But that was an important decision. It was not easy. And it also meant that we would even have somewhat of a technically lower profits, even though fact is we ended up making decent profits because we were able to control our destiny. Now, the reason I'm saying all of that is that today the world is confronted with challenges. The challenges of the fact of how much of globalization should there be? Is it good for America? Is it good for other countries of the world? As you know, big debates are taking place. The fact that we decided that we will maintain manufacturing in the United States was a major one. Then we also, when I started, most of the Ethan Allen retail was run independently by independent retailers who mostly sold Ethan Allen. We said we will create a team where everybody will be dedicated to one brand. Then we took another step. We said people who are decorating their homes need help. So interior design help is critical. So we took the business from commoditization for providing service, but with products that we could control. So today we have over 1,200 interior designers that work in our system. We have 200 design centers in North America, 100 outside North America. 75% of our products are made in our own facilities in North America. We are one of the few companies that ship products to China, to Taiwan, to Philippines, to Thailand, to Dubai, to Qatar, to Oman. These are products made in North America being shipped under the Ethan Allen brand. So this opportunity of taking a business and making it into a business that will provide service and also have the ability to control great quality is important. Then comes technology. Now, in the last 10, 12 years, technology has impacted everything we do. It has impacted our manufacturing, our logistics, our retail. Now, fortunately, about the last 8, 10 years, we've added a lot of technology, like we are talking, having this interview through technology. Today, with virtual reality, with Zoom, Skype, all of this, our people are able to interact with clients, working with technology. And today, combining technology and personal service has become a tremendously important factor. Fortunately, we had invested in this in a number of years, and today that is becoming a great benefit for us.
Fascinating. Let me take you back to the importance you indicated about that choice you had to make about offshoring manufacturing operations or maintaining that balance. In your book, Mr. Katwari, when you speak about the time that you formed KEA International as a precedent there, and then you were looking at a potential JV with Ethan Allen, and you had to make a choice of leaving your current company. And I was struck by the position you took, and I'm quoting, you say, the only reason to not do it was that I was scared, and that is not a good enough reason. And I'm fascinated by that. It goes into your entrepreneurial, go by the gut, bold and courageous decision making. But take that a little bit forward to some of the tough decisions you have made in these times, and what should folks in our audience who are young entrepreneurs, who are leaders, who are perhaps CEOs of smaller companies, what can they take away from that? I believe that's a very important nugget of guidance that you have there.
No, it is. I mean, it happened that while I was being this entrepreneur, and Ethan Allen was my customer, I had gone. My first job was when I came to New York at age a little over 20. My first job was being a bookkeeper, because that's the first job I got. I'd never seen any books or calculators. And after that led me, after I learned bookkeeping a year, the owners told me, said, you better work on Wall Street. Our school was near Wall Street. Well, I never heard of Wall Street. I had no idea what they did, but I ended up getting a job on Wall Street with a very well-known financial institution. And then a few years later, I became the chief financial officer of this institution. So this incident you talked about was important in the sense that when the founder of Ethan Allen, the chairman, they said, and agreed to have a joint venture, it was a big, big risk. Here I had, at a fairly young age, had a good job, good future. They wanted me to stay. And I said, no, the only reason I would not go is because I would be scared, and scared is not a good option. Now, having said this, obviously you have to take some calculated risks. You cannot do it foolishly. I had to think about who my partners were going to be. What were the chances of succeeding? Now, if I felt that I was dealing and going and leaving my good job and developing a joint venture on with enterprise that perhaps didn't have a reputation like Ethan Allen did, or the people that I met had reputation, I may not have done it. So yes, you have to take risks, but you also have to do it sensibly.
Wonderful. One more foray into leadership in today's globalized world. You have made a very important statement. Again, allow me to quote from the book. You state that leadership must master the challenge of guiding a multicultural world. And I'm a firm believer that there is a new breed of leaders that is needed. By new, I do not mean that the old ones cannot function, but it's a new set of characteristics that are being appreciated. Somebody who understands a global perspective on the world, exposure to different cultures, languages, perhaps even faiths, because all of that is essential in order to marshal the right team, the right resources to pioneer your company moving forward. Having said that, I would like some elaboration, because you have identified some sound principles of leadership, which include social responsibility as a corporate value, leading by example, focusing on truth and justice in leadership, and essentially saying that it is okay to lose if the underlying moral principles demand so. So I think that's a very critical need for leadership to understand today, whether it is in the business world or in the socio-political context. So with your guidance there and experience, I want to hear your perspective on that.
Yes. Again, going back when I was establishing myself and Ethan Allen, I at that time also thought about, and I put into words what I felt was the leadership's responsibility. So I thought about it, and I like number 10. Moses, had 10 principles, so I said 10 is a good number. So I gave 10 leadership principles about 30 years back. It was also been impacted by many, many factors. In fact, I have also said from time to time that I was influenced by the example set by our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He married his boss. He worked for her. Think of the fact of what precedent he set up for the role of women in society and in business. Then when he, and especially Hazrat Ali after him, were giving instructions to their governors, they would be very clear. In fact, there's a letter of instructions that I have a copy of it, written by Hazrat Ali to Governor Designate Malik of Egypt. He said, Malik, you're going to Egypt, and your job is to help those people become better. Your job is not take the most and give the least. The job of a leader is to help the people become better. And said, when you get your advisors, make sure you get the best and pay them well so they don't become corrupt. Very simple. So establishing those kind of principles is tremendously important. So when I established those 10 leadership principles, one of them is very simple. The first one is hard work. A leader has to work hard. Another one in the principle is speed. If something is important, you better do it. Third is the relative importance of issues. Not the leader's responsibility is to understand issues. At this stage, I ask our people to focus on 5 things every time. I said, don't tell me more than 5. Even 5 is a lot. So when you establish these kind of principles, then you can talk about social responsibility. Social responsibility cannot be done in a vacuum. Now, I believe, and I've said it, that again, I go back to my background. Fortunately, I have had the opportunity of being a CEO for a long tenure, long term. So that has also helped. For instance, when we went, you're talking of COVID recently, we had to close in March, we had to close 200 locations in retail. We were demanded. We didn't close them, we were asked to close. Our manufacturing closed, which we did. Fortunately, 2 things happened. I decided that we must treat our people fairly, so we kept their medical coverage going on for a period of time, but they also got a lot of benefits, the federal money, the state money. Now our operations, we have approximately 1,800 people working in Mexico and Honduras. Great people. Then I found out they're not going to get any benefits. They were also asked by their governments to close. I mean, we were asked to close, but they didn't have the benefits of the federal or the state. So we decided that we're going to pay them through this period. We didn't have to. Now it cost us some money, but it was the right thing to do. And this thing that I just got, I showed you, this from Mexico, where they said, to Captain Farouk, I've been there, now we've been there 12, 13 years. We treated them fairly. They work extremely hard. They are, treating people fairly, and the word justice I've used in my one of our leadership principles. People say justice. I say it's good for business. These things are not being done just because they're not good. When people are motivated, people stay with you a long time, you do well. That's why this concept of social responsibility is not just up in the air. It's not something that you're doing it because it makes you feel good. It's good for business.
Wonderful. Mr. Katwari, I'm compelled to focus on one aspect that I'd like to hear from you a little bit more. This concept of leading by example. I've had the privilege of being around the block with some of the best CEOs around the world. And one thing that I have noticed is this is not an easy concept to apply. The saying that what you do speaks so loudly that I simply cannot hear what you say. So it is easy for me as a CEO to get companies or other leadership together and say, our company is going to be one of integrity. We will follow all ethical principles, and then and I expect honesty from all of you, and then I go out and make some lousy excuse that they can see through me and say, oh, this guy or gal is just blowing hot air. And that takes away all of the credibility and trust. And you can lose your credibility and trust. You know this better than I do. In a snap, while it takes months and months of sincere action to build it up. So can you speak a little bit about leading by model, leading by example, especially in today's world?
Well, all of these are really covered through these 10 leadership principles. The 10 leadership principles say that it's the leader's responsibility to set an example. The leaders, I have found, and it doesn't matter where it is. I had an opportunity of establishing operations in Kashmir many years back in central India. And I insisted with the people we worked, I want you to treat these people well. In some cases, when I went to Kashmir, I said, you got to raise their salaries. They said, why? I said, you treat them well, they're going to do a better job. And they do. But you cannot do it a short-term kind of a thing. I think if the policy program is that you treat people well, then you by example have to show them that that the responsibility. And there'll be 1%, 2%, 3% of the people who don't do it. But the problem is a lot of people determine their policies what the 2 or 3% are going to do, not what 97% do. That's a big mistake. I say, yes, you're going to have some people who are going to misuse it. Sure. Some people are not going to. But I'm now going to base our judgment, policies based on the 2 or 3%, but on the 97% who do a good job.
Fascinating. Mr. Katwari, you referred to the term captain. Let me take you back to the times of your cricketing time in India and your captaincy. And for our viewers, the time that you overcame the attendance thresholds for your university exam by successfully arguing to the dean there that being able to live and work successfully with people is the most important skill in life. And my time spending time with my roommates, getting to know them, working with them on the cricket field has made me a better leader. And that's why it should be counted as formal attendance in my coursework. And you succeeded in that argument. And tell us a little bit about that and what you take away from those leadership times back in cricket.
Yes, of course, I came from a region of conflict. Kashmir is a beautiful area. Our families were impacted. Both my grandfathers were great in terms of the business people, merchants, lovers of art. My father was in politics, and our families got separated because Kashmir got divided. So we got divided, and I didn't see one of my brothers and sisters for 10 years. My mother didn't see their children for 10 years. My father didn't see their children, some of the children for 70 years. So we have gone through that also. But on the other hand, so when I was growing up, sports saved me. My attention got to sports. Cricket was one of the main ones. And fortunately, I would become a captain in the school team, in the college team. And the objective of the team, captain of the team, was that we had to play. We had to play, and if you were not playing, you'll see in my book it says you're either practicing or if you're not playing. So in my first year of college in Kashmir, you had to appear in a university exam after the first year in college, and you had to attend a certain number of classes. And the time came, they said, no, you can't appear because you have not attended classes. So I would not be in America if I had not gone to the vice chancellor and said, sir, you have to give me attendance. He said, why? I said, because I was playing cricket, and cricket is an education. So he smiled, he laughed. I said, what do you mean? I said, yes. I was not goofing off. I was playing. I was practicing. I was working, and that's a great education. How to learn how to work with people is a great education. And anyway, he got convinced, and he gave me the attendance, and I was able to get in the exams. Otherwise, I would not have been able to come to America.
No, that is a fascinating learning experience. Now, one last bit of business aspects before we move on a little bit beyond it. You have taken the position that driving innovation at a tradition-bound company is one of the biggest challenges a leader can face. And I can speak from experience, particularly as you jump across cultures, how much tradition plays a significant role. How much of, well, we have done this and we have succeeded in the past doing this. and hence we rely on that for the next millennium or so, and that eventually leads to stagnation, complacency, and downfall. So speak a little bit about that. How do you tackle traditional hurdles, overcoming the former owner syndrome, overcoming what we are told is to be respected because that's how it was done in the past?
Yes, well, it's a question, it is a process. For instance, when I became president, Ethan Allen, like all companies at that time, almost all companies had certain ways of doing things. One of them was, especially when you were running manufacturing in all the rural areas of the country, most of the philosophy was it's my way or the highway. That's what the management said. And so I said, no, it's not my way or the highway. The job of a leader is to help the people become better. So I'm now, pretty young. I'm actually up in Vermont with 1,000 people, and I was giving them a talk, and I said, I know you got leaders here who have been with you for a long, long time, but their job is to help you become better, and if they don't, you have a right to revolt. So my leaders said, what are you telling them? I'm the president of the company. You're telling them to revolt? I said, if you don't help them. Well, it was a major change. Then I realized that I had to do something more than that. So I invited close to over 4,000 of our factory people, in 400 to 500, to come to meetings to our headquarters in Connecticut.
Mm.
It was an amazing thing that had not been done. Some folks in Oklahoma said, we've never flown and we're not going to fly, but if God had wanted us to fly, would have given us wings. So I said, who gave you airplanes? But they came. In other words, this is not just that you have to speak, you have to have action. Then what it did was it had an impact. Many of our leaders couldn't make it. They said, it's enough. This we cannot have. Nothing wrong. It was a cultural change. Others came in. So today at Ethan Allen, it'd be hard to determine who's a vice president and who's somebody right on the floor. They're all workers.
Fascinating. Let me segue onto this concept of building a common platform based on shared values. I was struck by your use of the mountain people's characteristics, the greetings, the takra, the khair, razi, the concept of checking into each other's health and family and contentment. And it's shared alike by mountain people, or as you say, the flatlanders. And it is this concept of bringing people together from different perspectives, different viewpoints, but finding what is common ground around which we can build a shared partnership. And that has served you tremendously as you've moved on to the Kashmir Study Group, as you have forayed into diplomacy and parlayed with state leaders of states for fascinating success. Speak a little bit about that concept of getting people together on what they share.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. The concept of, it sounds somewhat perhaps not necessary, but the idea of getting people together is critical. In fact, in this crisis, I'll come back to your question, this crisis has given us an opportunity to be more closer to people through technology than we were before this crisis.
Fascinating.
I'm today alone having meetings with hundreds of our team members every week. And I have different groups of people are being brought together because previously to bring them together, to bring manufacturing, technology, product development, advertising, retail, logistics, all these key people together, normally we would have a conference 2 times a year, maybe. Today, once a week, we're able to bring all the people together by technology. I've got 100 people through Zoom or Skype or whatever. So I think that question today of the importance of bringing people together, and the amazing thing is this, that people themselves now saying, it's great we did it. A few years back, people wanted to live in silos. Like countries want to live in silos. Institutions live in silos. Today we know, you take this concept from this to a wider perspective. The world is small. Today we've got to live in this world together. And maybe this technology could help us in bringing people together to talk so that they just don't have to meet once a year in the United Nations. So technology also has benefits if you're able to use it. And for us at Ethan Allen, it really has made us, and I'm sure a lot of organizations and institutions are using the opportunity to communicate better. You would think that because of the fact we can't see, we cannot communicate. It has given us an opportunity to even communicate much better.
Let me take a slight bit of a detour and get your perspective on branding. I was struck by your focus, even as a young businessman, when you took on the task of getting Kashmiri rugs. And then you focused on the fact that they were not being branded and there wasn't an associated top quality or distinguishing characteristic. And you may recall the what you've done with the Nagin rugs, and then moved on, you relied on that. And then at the same time, I was also struck by your focus on somehow giving an inspiration for the workers to aspire to higher quality. Fascinating when you wanted the photo of this quality control lady, Hazel Hilton, to be sent to the Kashmiri artisans. And you said, I want the Kashmiri craftsmen to see your photograph and think about pleasing you as they do their work. I find that concept so directly applicable to today's times as to how you motivate each employee to understand the needs of the customer and put themselves in the customer's shoes and aim toward satisfying that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, I did this at a time when, the story goes when the founder of Ethan Allen, the chairman, asked me to meet me. And they found out I was from Kashmir. He asked one of his associates, do we get anything from Kashmir? And she said, yes, we get this fabric, but never comes on time, always a problem. So he asked me, can you help? I said, absolutely. Of course, I had no idea. Then they gave me some samples, sent to Kashmir, and they came in. And then I realized I had to go to North Carolina to meet Hazel Hilton to show her those samples, which I did. And then I realized that she said to me, young man, remember this, if it's not right, we're going to send it right back to you. I said, oh no, I have no place in Manhattan in my one-room apartment. So I said, people in Kashmir better see her, because what she told me hit me. And I said, they better see her. And you know what? It was an amazing message. Similarly, I think today our associates, fortunately, as I said, 75% of all our products we make ourselves. So we have the ability to show our clients, our customers, our people at every level. We deliver our products to customers' home, inside their home, at one cost nationally. We did that many, many years back when it was considered foolishness to deliver our products in California to Texas and Florida at one price delivered to their home. And we still do it. But what we do now is we want our customers, our people, to see who's the face of this customer. Because once you do that, it changes your perspective. And all of a sudden, it is not an abstract thing. Sending Hazel Hilton's photograph to Kashmir made it from an abstract question, good quality, to this person. And it had a big impact.
Fascinating. I wanted you to address that because that is such a simple yet often neglected concept of putting yourself into the shoes of your customer. Just a couple of days ago, I was dealing in the educational technology business where technology courses are being marketed to fresh graduates. And my question to our leadership was, if it were your son or if it was my daughter, how would you position this offering and say, this is perfectly tailored for your daughter? Your daughter will have no alternative that she needs to worry about. Just join us and we will take care of your daughter. And I think that's the concept that you're talking about here.
You see, what I do is every week, I have about 50, in fact, yesterday after midnight, I was reading them and commenting. All these people don't report to me, but 50 of our key people send a report every Sunday. And they focus on 5 things. First is talent. What have they done to take care of their talent, improve talent, treat them fairly? Second, they have to talk about is marketing. What have they done in marketing? Now, we have a sawmill up in Vermont. Marketing in the sawmill is very different than marketing, say, in retail. But marketing is internal marketing, external marketing. If you have 5 people working with you, you got to market to them. You got to explain to them. So third is service. What have they done to improve service? Fourth is what they have done to improve technology. Fifth is social responsibility and safety. Now, we were doing all of this much before this COVID situation. This has been going on for years. 5 things, and it's amazing. You would think that they have nothing to write about. Every week they're writing about. They give also, we've instituted what we call WOW events. So I asked, please send events that we have wowed a customer. Every week, I think I receive at least 100 to 150 instances of vows in which how they've treated a customer, how a customer has been satisfied. These are tremendously important, and this doesn't take a lot of time. They basically, they write, these 50 persons write 2 or 3 examples. And they have many other people working with them. So getting 50 or so examples is not much. 100 examples is not much. They do even more, but it creates a culture.
Sure.
It makes them understand what's the importance. And they then understand that today, people rate you.
Sure.
Other element of technology. If they don't like you, boom, it goes all over the world.
Mr. Katwari, it's fascinating. Speaking of technology, I have received an inquiry online from a lady. I won't use her name but without her permission. But the question is, how did technology help with continuity of employment of Ethan Allen staff during this time of social distancing, and considering this as a direct investment into the protection of the jobs of talented people? I think it's a good question, and I thought I'd just pose it to you directly. Thanks, Miss S, for your insightful question.
By the way, we are live. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's good. I wasn't sure, but this question of our associates, March and April, we had to follow everybody. We were asked that nobody could work. Now, I would say as of now, close to 80% of our people are back to work. Almost 100% in our manufacturing and logistics. And they're doing, as you mentioned, our business is higher than it was last year for a number of factors. One of it is there's a more interest of consumers in the home at this time, but also the fact is that we are there. So I'm glad that our people are back. And today you have also to be not easy I'm asked by many of our people who work that, our children are at home. What should we do? So I've said, give people the opportunity to take care of their children, but tell them they've got to make it up. And
Sure.
People do it. So flexibility becomes important and not easy, because today everybody is not coming to work. Look at me, I'm doing this from my home office.
Sure.
Tomorrow I'm going to be at a headquarters. A couple of days, 3 days I go, but the rest I don't go. So you have to have the ability to give people an opportunity to have flexibility today. You have to understand the challenges that they're faced with. And the good news is, as I said, 97% do a good job. If the 3% who don't, I cannot have 97% suffer because 3% don't do it right.
Fascinating. Well, there were 2 other areas that I wanted to cover, but unfortunately we are running short of time. One definitely was your focus on caring for others as the most important thing to do, based on the inspiring and difficult experiences of your son Irfan. But what I will do is, with your permission, I'll save that, and I hope that you will accept my invitation to come back for another discussion with me. This has been a fascinating time, Mr. Katwari. You are indeed an inspiring trailblazer, and a proven record of successful leadership in a world of complexity and differences. I am sure that our viewership has been educated on a range of principles of leadership and principled living. But thank you for coming, and I hope I can wrangle that acceptance from you of coming back for another such discussion. Can I pressure you to say yes while everybody's watching us?
No, I'll be happy to do that, because I've also been very happy to meet you and to understand your background, which in fact your audience does not know it, that I interviewed you a few days back because I wanted to know who you were and your background was, and it was a good interview.
No, thank you so much. All the best. Stay safe, stay well, and keep Ethan Allen remarkably on a high trajectory as an iconic US manufacturing company. All the best. Thank you, Mr. Katwari.
Thank you very much.